We are currently in the middle of a pharmaceutical gold rush. Drugs like Ozempic and retatrutide are pouring out of manufacturing lines by the millions of vials, altering human bodies at a massive scale. These compounds act like a biological delete button. They intercept the signals in the brain that scream for food, nicotine, or alcohol, and they simply shut them off. The physical cravings disappear. In parallel, alternative therapies are moving out of the underground and into clinical environments. Raw plant medicines and psychedelics like ibogaine are being fast-tracked in modern trials, used to aggressively rewire traumatized neural pathways. But this presents a glaring paradox. If modern science can successfully map the brain, turn off the biological alarms, and erase physical cravings entirely, true addiction recovery remains incredibly difficult to achieve. The problem lies in what happens after the clinical intervention. Pharmaceutical compounds heal the physical symptoms and make people look healthy on the outside, but they leave a vacuum. They completely bypass the internal, mental, and emotional reality of the patient. Getting clean in an isolated environment, whether that's a high-end rehab clinic, a guided retreat, or a jail cell, is often the easiest part of the process. The true danger starts the moment the treatment ends and the patient has to walk back into their daily life. We take an individual who has been chemically cured and temporarily separated from their triggers, and we plunge them right back into the exact ecosystem that caused the addiction in the first place. Treating only the biology of the addict guarantees failure because it ignores the environment they actually have to survive in. That survival environment is filled with cultural landmines. Traditional society and our daily routines actively, albeit unintentionally, sabotage the reintegration of anyone trying to stay sober. Think about the events we consider entirely normal. A family Christmas dinner is usually saturated with alcohol. In Ireland, a traditional wake demands heavy drinking. In South Africa, funerals are often followed by an after-tear celebration, where heavy drinking is the expected way to mourn. Intoxicants are deeply woven into how human beings connect with each other. We use them to celebrate life, and we use them to process death. Avoiding a relapse in these environments is not a simple matter of biological willpower. It requires an individual to actively fight the gravity of their own cultural identity. But the environment of a single family dinner is only the surface. If we pull back the lens, we see that these immediate surroundings are not the root cause. Addiction is a downstream symptom of massive historical disenfranchisement. Consider the systemic trauma left behind by apartheid in South Africa. The geography and economy were designed to marginalize millions based entirely on race. Under the Bantu education system, children were rigidly oppressed. The state decided their futures, funneling them into menial labor while denying them basic opportunities. That structured oppression created deep-seated psychological wounds that still fuel the cycle of addiction decades later. This trauma also operates at the intimate, familial level. Look at the history of Ireland's institutional abuses. In places like the Magdalen laundries, young, unwed mothers were stripped of their agency. They faced forced marriages to abusive partners or had their children taken away. This fractured entire families, locking generations into silent cycles of domestic violence. For the children raised in the shadow of that violence, alcohol became an inevitable, culturally accepted tool. It was the easiest way to numb the immediate fear and endure the inherited pain of their parents. Addiction is a coping mechanism for inherited trauma. If you only provide a pharmaceutical pill to erase the chemical craving, you simply leave a painfully sober person trapped inside a burning historical house. A chemical compound cannot rewrite history or undo centuries of systemic abuse. The solution to deep trauma requires something entirely human, the creation of what recovery coaches call the container. The container is a safe, highly protective psychological space. Recovery coaches build it through intentional empathy, grounding the entire process in human connection rather than clinical protocol. This approach stands in direct contrast to traditional clinical treatments. It rejects the mechanistic, rigid, and strictly outcome-based formulas that try to fix a patient like a broken machine. True recovery demands a guide who can adapt. They must meet the person exactly where they are, acknowledging their unique cultural and familial history, rather than forcing them into a pre-packaged clinical mold. Healing complex trauma is an organic, fluid negotiation. It is not a mechanical checklist. The efficacy of the container depends on the reality of the people building it. The coaches holding this space are often navigating their own deep wounds. To truly connect, they have to actively draw upon their own painful pasts. They sit with their own lingering anger toward abusive parents, the crushing guilt of hurting their own spouses, and the persistent panic they felt as children. They don't hide these scars. They don't position themselves as perfect experts or detached doctors. Instead, they use their histories to offer profound, authentic vulnerability. Science can keep a body alive and erase a chemical craving. But breaking the cycle of inherited trauma happens when one person is finally honest about their own damage, allowing the person across from them to do the same. It is the shared human experience of waking up together.